Oh, welcome to the channel. Tell I fixed stuff. Today we have this Wales adding machine. I believe this is a Model 10 because it doesn't have the subtotal key, it just has total. Total key is bent, and the reason for that is because in shipping this outer case came loose and messed up, kind of put some scratches in the arrow key, bent this total key. So I have it locked in back down in for now, but you can also see that the glass panels are all missing. So I'll have to see if you can replace those. The glass panel for here, I do have that one, but I've taken it out temporarily because it was loose. I didn't want it to get damaged, flopping around in there, so I took that out. But I do have that to put back in. We can clean it up. You can see it's got this like green rubbery stuff on here, so I don't know like what exactly was placed on top here, but you can see it's kind of like a a square pattern with some strings in it. So I'm not quite sure what that's from, but obviously something was pressed on top of this machine for quite a while. See, the serial number is down here in the front, and my tripod is crooked, but that's fine. You can see it's 13-8848. Now, I'm not sure if this is like I'm not sure if this is like the burrows where these first two digits indicate some kind of like model identifier, and then these last ones are the serial number. Given that I think this is a Model 10, that could be, and maybe like 13 means like sub-style. Like our burrows had the class 1, and then they had like style 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 9, which indicated different features of the machine, like the carriage width and stuff. So maybe this is Model 10 style 3, and that could indicate any number of things like you can see got a wide carriage back there, so that may indicate that. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway. So, yeah. What's something I wanted to mention about this machine was made in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from where I grew up, so it's kind of interesting. But anyway, we'll take this case off here, and the best way that I've found to do that is, if we turn this around to the side, this machine weighs about 50 pounds, by the way. This is kind of like the burrows where the cover latches in, and you're supposed to have some kind of key to get it off. Found that this piece right here, you can fit a little screwdriver in the top there. You should be able to rotate it that way, and then that releases this. You have to take these out first. You see what I'm doing? No. I'm pulling the keys out of the top section. I think, does this one come off too? Oh, yes it does. The total key comes out. See if we can take that off. Can we take the arrow key off? Yes, we can. So just pull all those off to make it easier. So now this unlatched. It only latches on either side, right in the middle here. Should be able to lift this off. There we go. So we'll get that off to the side. You can see. So what am I showing here? There. That's one of the tabs that holds the glass in. There's another one. So it's the two sides in the front, and then the register window that get glass. And that's a nice cast piece. Now we can see more of the machine here. So this is that latching mechanism. You can see this latch here just rocks like that, and then putting the screwdriver in here, so that just releases that. It's a nice solid cast iron base plate, what you'd expect for these old machines. I believe this was manufactured from around 1903, I think, up until 1926. In 1926, the Wales company merged with R.C. Allen to become Allen Wales. Now, I don't know if this particular model was made all the way up until 1926, but that's when the Wales company stopped going by the brand name Wales. Of course, there actually is no brand name on this because it's like all of the markings have somehow come off this machine. The Wales name should have been like up here on the cover, but there was nothing there. And even like here, you can see there's supposed to be markings here, and there's not. If you get the light just right, you can kind of see where they used to be. Like there it says thousands. Can we see that it says millions there? So whether like someone repainted this or what exactly happened, I don't really know. But all of the, like text markings seem to have been lost. So anyway, you can see that the other major issue, well, the only major issue so far that we've noticed is the frame is cracked right here. I'm not sure if you can see that. And I suspect you can see how this is cracked and moved over. I suspect that's probably due to shipping damage, I would assume. It's not like loose, like this is not loose in any way because it's not cracked anywhere else that I can tell. There might be a little crack on the side. Maybe right there I think is a crack, that little piece, but it doesn't really seem loose. So I'm going to try and do is see if I can get this to just slide back over so everything lines up. And as long as nothing seems loose and the machine operates okay, I'm not going to worry about it. This is a pretty thick frame overall, and the other side seems to be fine, so I'm not worried about this going anywhere. Like this top piece doesn't seem to be cracked in any way. So I was going to see if I can get this to line back up so that everything's straight and square. And assuming we don't notice any issues due to this being cracked, which I don't think that we will, we're just going to leave it like that. So that's what I'm going to do first, and then we can actually try this machine out and see what it does. Yeah, so that seemed pretty easy to fix. All I did was I just wrapped the paper towel around here so it wouldn't get marked, and then used a pair of pliers to give it a little squeeze, and it popped right back in. It's kind of one of the good things about cast iron being so brittle is it's not likely to bend, and if it does break, the pieces are going to line up generally pretty well because they don't really deform at all. They just kind of give like a even break, not really even, but non-deforming break, and then they line up, and this is still straight. It was only over because I guess when it cracked, the pressure of this pushing down was pushing against here and not allowing it to slide back over. So just giving a little squeeze with the pliers, pop it back over. Everything seems to line up. I think it'll be okay. There's the front view. You can kind of see the crack a little bit there, but I think that'll be okay. So this machine is kind of dirty, but not excessively so. And then kind of interestingly enough, there's like feathers in it too. Like there's a feather here. I'm not sure where that came from. Does this work? This works. This paper roll. Of course, the paper thing is all messed up too. I'm gonna have to, if I can move this. You can see this is all bent out of shape, so we'll have to see if we can fix that. I might just take the paper roll out for now while we're playing with this, but we'll see. Anyway, so the handle is down, but that's just like a storage position, I guess. It just kind of snaps in there and you can fold it down. So, not sure which way would be the best view for you to see. So we just kind of go like this. We'll pull the handle. And nothing seems to jam. Paper is advancing. Actually, you can kind of see zeros being printed too, which is interesting. You can get in on that. You can kind of see very faint zeros there. So let's try and set some numbers up. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it looks like it only went to 1, 2, 2, so something maybe jammed. You can see that it looks like it only printed 1, 2, 2, so maybe something's jammed there. We can print, let's try printing some 9s. We'll set up 9s in the first 3 columns and see what we get. Oh, that doesn't look like it went all the way up to 9s. Let's try 1, 2, 3 again. It's only going to 1, 2, 2, so that's going to have to get looked into. We can try the total. I have to do an empty crank, I assume. This key is bent, so I'm going to unbend it a little bit. Oh, that's stiff. Probably because it's bent. Let me try it. Can you see what's going on here? Yes. Bend this over a little bit and see if that. No, not exactly. Probably because it's still bent somewhat. There now. Seems straighter. That is kind of painful to push. Put the key back on. It printed something out, but it didn't clear the register. Oops. So, not sure. It does kind of latch. Not sure if it's supposed to like unlatch during the middle of the cycle. Like it's looking like it's doing a subtotal, not a total. This is still somewhat bent here. So that latches down. There we go. Now it worked, I think, except for one column. So you can see now everything cleared out except for this column. There's something maybe stuck there. We'll have to look into that. But it did print out the total. You can try it again, just see what happens. Yeah, that column is not advancing for some reason. So we'll have to look into that. What we can try is, even though this column is the one that's messed up, we can try over here. We can do 1, 2, 3. And it just did 1, 1, 3. So yeah, something is definitely sticky in here. You can see we entered 1, 2, 3, but we only got 1, 1, 3. So something is not quite right. Do a blank. Actually, this is not even lining up properly, this column, so I can take this off. This side's already loose. Let's take that cover off and just see if we can get a better look why that column is not lining up. That's interesting. Just 2 screws either side hold this in. Off. Right, you can get a look here. Oh, I wonder if this wheel is stuck to the shaft maybe. As you can see when I wiggle this one also moves. So I wonder if these are, yeah, and you can see the whole shaft rotates. Sure how well it's showing up on the camera, but the whole shaft is rotating with those wheels. So probably dried grease has glued these wheels to the shaft. Let's see if I do a 7 here in that column. Yeah, nothing happens. If I do a 2, nothing happens. But if I do, let's try entering 7s all the way across the machine. See what happens. So that mostly worked except for this one, which is now an 8, although it was a 2 before, was it a 1 before? Not sure, but yeah, either way, something's messed up with at least these 2 probably glued to the shaft, so we might have to take this whole shaft out and see if we can get a better look at that. I did print all 7s all the way across the machine. Empty one and then try it total. And did that again. So something's up with the total engagement disengagement mechanism. Not another feather. Something's up with the total engagement disengagement mechanism, not allowing these to stay at 0. It keeps doing a subtotal. I'm not sure if it's something up with that key still being bent, because right now is when it should release. Now it released. So I wonder if this key is just sticky, if that's supposed to release at the end and cause that to release. Again, it have to be looked into. But just getting kind of an overview, playing around with this right now, seeing what the issues are. So far we know we have an issue with this column and this column being frozen to the drive shaft here. And we know we have an issue with the total mechanism not always zeroing out the register. You can see if, I think clear works, right? Yeah, clear seems to work. Clear the keyboard. Let's see, which two columns? It was this column and this column that were stuck. I wonder if we can do 1, 2, 3 over here. So you can. We got 0, 2, 3. So yeah, something is sticky. And you can see actually. Well, it's going to be a bad example over there. Let's try over here. 1, 2, 3. So I entered 1, 2, 3 here on the keyboard, and you can kind of see in here, not as well as I was hoping. See this peg here has lifted up, and then these things are going to come back. So these are the riser mechanisms, or the sliders, whatever you want to call them. And then these pins here are the stops. So if you watch, for example, I'll enter a 6 in this very first column here. You can watch, see the 6th pin there slides up. And then when I pull the handle, you can see these pieces start coming back, except for that first one because it's stuck on something. You see the other ones there, how they come back until they're stopped by one of the pins. So, basically the same principle as how all these work. They have, the keys set a certain stop, and the machine has spring-loaded risers or sliders, whatever you want to call them, that slide until they hit that stop. It's just kind of interesting the way that they've done this, because usually, like for the Burroughs Class 3 or the Victor machines, the sliders are under the keyboard, where each key, when you push it down, it has a pin that comes out the bottom, and the slider comes down to hit against that pin. But in this one, you can see if we look in the side here, they have a little cantilever mechanism. And see if I push the one key, it pushes down on this cantilever, which has a pivot point right here in the middle, right around there. And then this pushing down pushes the other end up, which pushes the pin up that the slider will hit against. If I push the 6 down, you can see this end goes up. Same with 7, 8, 9. So definitely an interesting approach. As far as these not setting the right number, aside from the two that are stuck, the ones like this one that didn't want to add 1, or was it this one? Probably something stuck here with these risers not coming back. This is for the clear. Yeah. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start doing some cleaning and some looking and just seeing how everything is interconnected in here, and then see if I can explain what exactly the issue is. We're probably going to have to take this whole shaft out because of the 2 wheels that are stuck to the shaft. We're probably going to have to take all of the wheels off, see if we can get those 2 freed up or something. The ribbon actually seems to be kind of okay. It is printing legibly now. Probably the first couple here that were, oops, opens out, paper tore, that's fine. Probably the first couple here that were illegible were some, the ribbon that's been exposed for how many years, but as it rotated the ribbon through, it looks like it started printing clearer, so it's kind of cool. Maybe this ribbon will still be usable. So yeah, I'm going to start doing some cleaning, some looking, and then see if I can explain what exactly is happening with this machine not working. But so far it's pretty promising. Overall functionality seems to be okay. It looks like you probably just have a few stuck pieces here and there. But yeah, so far pretty cool. And I'm not even showing it because I'm not paying attention to where my camera is pointing. Let's try that again. Yeah, so the handle is loose. Let's do that back in. Yeah, I'm just going to go through and clean this up and see what the issue is, and we'll pick up from there. Now, so a couple minutes of playing revealed the first issue with the incorrect number being added in here. So I've got the machine partially through a cycle, And I was trying to figure out why, some columns weren't going back as far as they should on the sliders here. So you can see I've entered 1, 2, 3, but the first columns both only slid back to 1, and the second column didn't slide back all the way to its stop like it should have. Well, this column did slide all the way back, and the issue is these pieces here, some of them are frozen together. So you can see how this kind of wiggles on its own. When I wiggle this one, those two wiggle together. So it looks like these two print mechanisms here are frozen together. And so because this one stops at 1, because that's what its D10 is set to, there's 1 in that column, it's preventing the second one from going to 2 because it's glued to this first one. And that also seems to be the issue in this first position here too. I think we had observed that the incorrect number was being added in the second or first column as well. It looks like the same thing. So this one's free. Looks like these two in the middle here are frozen together. This one's free and this one's free. So that's one problem figured out. I might see if I can take these out. I'm not sure how well that would go. I might just take the carriage patent assembly off the back here, see if I can get a better look at those and see if I can free them up. Or if I have to take them out, they'll probably give me a better look at what exactly the best approach would be to taking those out. So yeah, one problem diagnosed. Let's see if we can fix it. Now, so I've taken the carriage off. It looks like this is supposed to be the carriage release, but it doesn't want to slide at all. So what I ended up doing was just taking the whole carriage bracket off. It's held in by 4 screws. You can see 2 there, and then there's 2 down in there. If you can see it or not, 1 there and 1 there, that I had to hold this up like this to get at. It would be easier with the carriage slid off, but like I said, it wouldn't slide, so I have to take that apart and clean it once it's off the machine. You can see how these are all bent here. I have to bend those back for the paper holders. There's some rust on this assembly, but interestingly enough, check this out. Looks like this carriage had a very bad day at one point. We got a braze repair there, braze repair there, and braze repair there as well, and one down here hiding behind that support, so that's interesting. Not quite sure what would have happened there. This machine isn't something you'd really be carrying around, so I don't know. And if you did drop it, you'd think that something else would have broken, but it's kind of interesting. So I suspect that, as you can see, these are the rails right here that's supposed to slide, and you can see how rusty those are, so there's more feathers too. I suspect that just the rust in there has frozen that in place, so we'll see if we can take this apart some way and clean that up before putting it back on, but for now, we'll just set this off to the side and worry about that later. And now we can get a better look here at the back of the machine. Slide this around and probably see if we can, oops, the paint's coming off there. Take this plate off, looks like probably 4 screws there. See if we can loosen this up. This machine is kind of hard to move because, as expected, the rubber feet have all squashed down, so you really can't get your fingers underneath this back section here, underneath the base plate there, to lift it up. I've been lifting it by this piece, but it seems that it's probably not such a good idea, given that it's just a sheet metal piece held on by these 4 little screws. Let's see if this will... Oh, this piece is in the way, I think. Might come off with these screws. Yep, so we'll get this out of the way. This has the ribbon support, so I'll just slide that off and then see if this will, there we go. You can see there's more feathers down in, that's interesting. Over here, I may as well just slide the ribbon out of the way as well. Now we can get a better look at these pieces here. So, well, those two just came loose. Get a little squeeze, and now this one's free. this one's free, this one's free, this one's free, this is free, these two are still stuck. Oh, there we go, now they're free. That's free, and then these two on the end here. Oh, and now those are free too. Okay, just need a little bit of working there. I'm so glad that I took this off because I'm going to see if I can clean out in there, and I may even take these apart too just to get them a better cleaning. But for now, at least they're free. At least we're kind of sticking together again. So yeah, those will probably need a better cleaning, but that's some improvement. So see if we can flip this back around and try calculating again. Set these off to the side here. Let's see if we can flip this back around. There we go. All right, and see if we can clear this out here. You can see when it works, the total key pops up somewhere at the end. So that may be the issue with it not clearing out. The total key is getting stuck down too long. Anyway, let's try 1, 2, 3. And there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I just realized this is not going to work because we have no carry over here, so we won't be able to check the results accurately. So let's clear this out. And we'll try it in this column, 1, 2, 3. Go 1, 2, 3. I think that shows up on camera. Yes. 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9. 9, 8, 7. 6, 5, 4. And 3, 2, 1. And the piece just fell out. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that. But we did get the correct answer, 3330. So at least those columns seem to be working fine now. We can clear out again. Yep, and that cleared out now. And the piece that fell out appears to be this screw. So I'll have to investigate where that belongs. It's interesting. Yeah, so far that's promising. So I have to do some more cleanup and make sure this total mechanism is going to work reliably. And of course, free up those two stuck wheels there on that shaft. Kind of interesting, this machine looks like it has double sets of digits on these wheels. Like it has 0 to 9 twice. As you can see, like here, there's a 0 and like 976, but the wheel is too big around for that to, wrap around in that short distance. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show this on camera. Probably have to show it once I get this shaft out. But it looks like they've got 0 to 9 twice on those wheels. So it's kind of unique and interesting. So what I'm going to do next is, actually, some of these pieces had gotten stuck out. I'm assuming because there's no pattern here. Some of these, they come out to, so some of them have gotten stuck out like that. So I assume that that's just because there's no pattern. Should I get them back in, right? Yeah, so probably going to spend some time cleaning up in this area. Maybe disassembling some more of this and see if I can get some better access to clean back here. This seems to be the dirtiest part. So I'm probably going to do that, and then we're going to move on to taking this shaft out and cleaning that. But yeah, so far so good. Alright, so I decided to take this printing mechanism apart as much as I could to clean it. You can see I've got the printer pieces here. You can see, well, if you had focused, you could see. These things just slide up and down to align the correct number with the pattern, and then there's hammers that push them forward to stamp it. So I got those out, and you can see why I wanted to clean this up. So if you look down in there, it's just a a pile of dust and bird feathers mixed in with grease. I just look at the top of this screw here. So definitely worth taking this apart as much as possible to try and clean that out. I'm going to take a few more pieces off here. Hopefully I can get all of these out to clean them individually. I won't be able to get this shaft out because stuff's taper pinned on each end, and then there's stuff also inside here taper pinned on, so that's not going to happen. But you can kind of see part of how this works. So the slider pieces would be in between here, and they're going to slide up and down in between these two ends here. And then these pieces are part of the hammers, so you can see they have a long nose on there that will come forward and punch one of these. And these things are actuated on the back side there. You can kind of see the wear mark there where they're actuated by these spring-loaded hammers. So basically how this works is the machine starts by raising, you can see how it's putting tension on these springs. At the same time, this is going forward. So it's going to start by raising this back bar to put tension on these springs, and then at the critical moment, it releases this, and as you can see, all the hammers spring forward, at which point they would contact, well, that's my hand, at which point they would contact the back of these, which live on a shaft right up around in this area, and then these would drive forward into the pins on the back of here to stamp the digit. So that's basically how the printer works. Now, there are catches down in here for leading zero suppression. So you can see if these probably aren't going to work right now because of everything being disassembled, but you can see if I lift up this middle one, all the ones behind it also lift up, and then same thing going back. So basically, these will release the hammers behind it. So the idea is that any column that has a digit, not sure which part exactly would raise these, but there would be some part that would release these in any column that has a digit in it. So for example, when the printer starts rising up, maybe these would get released. That will release the hammers for all the columns behind it, so that in case any column has a 0, like say this one had a 5, but all these were zeros, you're entering like 50,000 or something. So you'd want to print the 5 plus all the zeros behind it, but not the zeros in front of the 5. So the 5 will release this, and that releases the hammers for every column behind it, which will print all the zeros there, but all the ones in front of it stay latched, so that you don't get all the zeros in front of the 5. That's basically what those are. The actuates these I haven't exactly seen yet. It might be these things underneath there. I'd have to check, but like I said, this may not be working properly because I've got this whole thing disassembled in here. All the hammers are out, the springs controlling the hammers are out, the printers are out, so quite a few pieces have been taken off of here, which may affect the functionality of these. But basically, that's how these would work in an ideal situation. So I'm going to continue cleaning on this, and then we'll probably put it back together. I would ideally like to take this whole thing off and work on it as a subassembly, but you can see it pivots on this shaft down here. You can see how it pivots there, and I don't want to take this shaft out because right where you can't see, right here you can see there's this piece with a screw in it. So those are on either side of a rod in the middle. Those are locking adjustments, so basically to center it up, and I'm not quite sure what exactly the procedure would be to adjust that. I could probably guess, but I'm not sure if I really want to mess with that. So I'm going to see how much I can do with the assembly just attached like this, and hopefully I can get this cleaned out enough to, it does work, but I want to get it cleaned out to make sure that, everything is nice and clean and smooth. So hopefully I can do that without having to take the whole assembly off the machine. It's pretty fun. I still want to get these, so you can see down here, these rods here go in between these pieces. So let's see if I can get those out and clean those separately, because those come all the way up to here and they're in that mess there. So yeah, just continue cleaning on this, and then we'll put it back together. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this pretty much mostly disassembled. I was able to get some table pins out of this shaft that these pieces were on here, and I was able to get those out. You will notice that I have a new table, and the reason for that is the leg detent on this table gave out on this side, so you can see there's nothing supporting that side of the table anymore, so that's why we're on this table now. You should have all the parts on this one though, so you can see the printer mechanisms here, the hammers here. I'm trying to keep them in somewhat order. It shouldn't really matter. I mean, these pieces aren't hand fit to their position, they're all just mass produced, so it shouldn't really matter the order, but I just kind of laid them out the way they came out. You see these pieces here that I wanted to take out, and you can see why. Look how grimy they all are on both sides. This has a 3 on it. I wonder if there's actually are. No, that one has a 3 too. And that one has something that I can't really read on it. I'm not quite sure what those markings are. You can see there's a, looks like a 3 stamped in it. But this one also has a 3 stamped in it. So I can take a look and see if there's any difference. I don't think that there is. I think these are all the same piece. This one has, looks like a 7. So I'll compare those, but I think they are all the same, but we'll just double check. So this is the plate that they ride in. You can see how dirty that is there. And that goes on the inside here, if like that, and then they ride against the back of it. So make sure we get that cleaned up. Clean all these pieces up. I wanted to take these shafts out too, but I couldn't get the taper pins out of here or out of here, so I'll have to see if I can flush the dirt out while they're in here. Additionally, while I was working on this, I also took a little bit of a look at how the register might come out, and I realized that it looks like it might not come out because these wheels are too big without hitting this shaft, and this shaft had 3 taper pins in, one on either side. There's a piece here, and then a taper pin in this piece here. So I also started working on trying to get that out just to make sure that it wouldn't come out, and I was able to get all the taper pins out and get this shaft moving. So hopefully we should be able to just slide that out then and take the register out. Just, you know, stuff that may cause major issues like taper pins that I kind of want to take care of first, and then just to make sure that I'm not going to have any major issues, and then kind of get into the cleaning and reassembly as we go along. So now that I don't think we should have to take anything else off this machine. I don't think, anyway. Hopefully not. Maybe just, you know, loosen up some of these levers on the side to do some light cleaning on that, but I don't think we really have to, you know, dig down in the inside here. This stuff all seems to be working fine. These are the drive rods that rise up to drive the register gears, and that part seems to be working just fine. So I don't think we'll really get into that, but just wanted to make sure that I could get this shaft out and get the register out without any issues. So I think what I'm going to do now is clean up all the pieces for the print mechanism and start reassembling that. And then once that's reassembled, we can test it out, perhaps. Maybe not, because I've already started to disassemble this. So maybe once I've reassembled this, I'll move on to taking the register out and free up those 2 sticky wheels, and then put everything back together and test it, and hopefully it'll work. So I'll get started cleaning and reassembling on this, and we'll pick it back up once we get somewhere. You can see just how dirty these things were. So this is one that I've just cleaned up, nice and shiny. And this is the one I haven't cleaned up yet. You can see it's basically just, you know, entirely caked with dirt and grease pretty much all over. So it's definitely important to, you know, clean all this stuff up. And, you know, when these are packed in like this, as they would be, you know, it's pretty hard to get down inside and clean out, you know, like between here, like the bearing surfaces and stuff. So that's why I wanted to take this apart as much as I could to clean everything out properly. Alright, so I'm making a little bit of progress here. I've got the hammer assembly back in with its latch and the mechanism that tensions the springs. And this, of course, is the hammer return. So this piece is taper pinned in, and this piece on the other side of the hammer return is taper pinned in. And then this piece on the side, which deals with, I think it's for the ribbon advance, it connects with the ribbon assembly somehow. That's also taper pinned in. So I do have to seat the taper pins a little bit tighter yet. I haven't done that yet because I did have to take this out a couple times because I thought I could put it in, but I had actually forgot that, you know, some things don't quite fit in, like this piece over here. I had forgot to put in before I put this shaft in, and then I couldn't fit it past to get it on this little piece. So that rides on. There's a piece like this. So these pieces here, which are the bearings for the shafts, are actually pressed into the frame here. So these don't move, and you can see the shaft moves, but this stays stationary, and that is just added support for the shaft. And if you look at the side, if you look at the side here, you can see the shaft in the middle, and you can just barely see the end of this metal piece that was pressed into the hole in the frame. So that's what they've got down here, and then this piece that's down here has a groove in it for the end of this screw to go in so this can't slide off. And then eventually there's a shaft that's going to go all the way through and all the way through these pieces, I guess just to stabilize them, or make sure they only go straight up and down. I haven't put that in yet. You can see these pieces here have a elongated cutout in the middle, which is kind of hard to see now, but there's a shaft that goes through that, I guess, just to make sure that they only go straight up and down. So I haven't put that back in yet. What I'm working on is putting these pieces back in, and they go down here. You can see here's the ends of them, and they run all the way up, and there's the tops of them right there. They rest on the back of that plate. You see the little comb here, they rest on those comb pieces. And those are the releases for the hammers. Well, they're part of the releases for the hammers. So you can see how they have this tab on them right here. I'll just drop that one. Well, so we can go down a little bit here. Take a better look. So you can see those little tabs are right underneath these. And then there's springs in the back of these. Normally these would be spring loaded up. So when you add a number and these start to rise up as the tooth racks go back to those stops, as these start to rise up, it will allow these pieces to slide up against the springs because the springs pull them up. And when they slide up, of course, these tabs on the top also will come up. And then what I haven't put in yet, but what goes on top of those are these. So you can see they have this little hook here that rests on the tops of, I'm going to demonstrate this, rests on the tops of these pieces, somewhat like that. And so when these go up, these will rock because they have a shaft in the middle of them. And when they rock back, they have this catch on the back of them that will unlatch from a hook on the bottom of the hammer. So basically, when no numbers are entered, all of these pieces will be held down by the little tabs on the back here, and then these pieces will be sprung forward against them, and then the hooks will lock all the hammers, so no hammers will spring forward when this piece lifts up. So I'll be locked by the hooks on the back of these things. Now you'll notice that this has a little tab here. So basically, any of these that rock forward, so for example, if I have two of them here, because they would be on the shaft somewhat like this, so that means that if, you know, say this one right here is released by its column and it rocks back, it will take this one with it because of the angled piece here. So that's how it does leading zero suppression, but still prints zeros behind the number. So for example, if I had, say, just 5 entered, then the 5, when the riser starts to rise up, it will release the lock piece here to slide up, which will release this to, will push this back, which will release the hammer to come forward and stamp the 5. Now say if I entered 50, there'd be a 0 in this column, so because there's a 0 in that column, this piece down here would never come up because it's held down by the tab on the back, because this riser doesn't move, because you're just adding a 0 in that column. But you still want to print the 0 for 50, so the 5 will now be in this column, this one will get released, and when it rotates back, it will also take this one with it, unlocking the hammer for the first column, so it prints the 5 and the 0. And that's basically how so if there's nothing entered over here, all these hammers will remain locked until one hammer is released, and then all the hammers behind that will also be released. That's how it does leading zero suppression, but still prints trailing zeros. So kind of a complicated little mechanism. There's a lot of different pieces involved to make that happen, but that's how all of these printing add listing machines usually are. Most of the complexity, or I should say, a good amount of the complexity is just in the print mechanism alone because of all the interlocks in there, and for the leading zero suppression and all that. The rest of the machine, it's also somewhat complex as well, but I guess the most densely complex is this. You got, a lot of individual pieces per column, and all interacting together. But that's one reason why I wanted to take this apart to make sure everything's all clean, because there is so much mechanical density in here. Like you can see, already how tight all the pieces are packed in here, versus in here, there's so much more space in between all the pieces. You can even look down and see the bottom of the case in between the pieces in there. Versus here, everything is packed so tightly, it's hard to get it to clean it when it's all together. So I'm going to go a little bit over explaining that. And one more thing. There's also this comb type thing, which I haven't cleaned yet, that goes down behind these, and this is your non-print. So when you push the non-print key, this swings forward, and then all of the teeth on there will go into these holes down here and lock all of these down so that nothing will print. That's a pretty simple mechanism. And then that just has this arm here off to the side that goes up to this piece right here, and then this right here is where the non-print key just attaches on. So it's a pretty simple non-print, just basically locks all of these releases down so that none of the hammers get released. We're going to continue putting these back together, and hopefully everything will go pretty smoothly. There's another thing that I have to mention here too, when you're putting this together. Don't forget this piece. This goes basically through the middle, somewhat like that, but it won't fit through once the entire print mechanism is all back together. I'm not going to put it in yet, but before I put the shafts through the top here, I'm going to slide that through because it won't fit through once everything's all together here. So I took this apart, I couldn't get it out until I started taking some of the shafts out, so I just wanted to mention that. Don't forget to put that back in. Also, there's something weird with this shaft right here. It's very tight to put in. So you can see that this shaft runs through the side here, and then this is it right here. And it has this bracket on it, which I probably should have shown before I put it back in, but the bracket has two little cups to go around these posts, and then it has two holes beneath that for the shaft to go through. And I believe this is just a rest for these pieces, because the shaft that those go on goes right through here, right through these bosses that the hook piece is around. So when these are in, I think that's just some kind of rest or stop for those. But this shaft is really tight in this bracket. I had a really hard time getting it out, and I thought maybe something is messed up with it, but nothing's really messed up with it that I can tell. It's straight, and everything seems to be in the right place. It's just very tight for some reason in that bracket. So I don't know if that's just they did that to make sure that it wouldn't come out on its own, or what the deal is there, but that's something interesting. So yeah, I'm just putting these in, and then putting the shaft, tapping the shaft through after I put each one in, so that they can't fall out, because the shaft acts as like a detent. So there's a shaft on the top. This shaft acts as a detent for the top piece, and then this shaft down here acts as the detent for the bottom, so that they can't fall forward. So just cleaning them as I go, putting them in, and then tapping the shafts through. And once those are all through, then I'll probably put the hammer latches in here. And after that, really the only thing that has to go back on, really in here, is we'll have to put the shafts in for the springs. There's a couple of shafts that do nothing but hold springs, so those have to go in. And then the hammer drivers, I should say, the actual pieces that hit the plungers have to go in. That would be these guys. So the hammers come forward and hit the back of these, and then they have a little nose that actually punches the stamper forward to stamp on the paper. So those go in right about in here. And then this one I think is for total. It doesn't say T or anything, it just has like a circle with a dot in the middle. So that's interesting. You can see it's kind of sticky, it's supposed to spring back, so I still have to clean that too. But I'm definitely getting somewhere, and it's starting to look nicer than it did. Definitely got most of the dust out, so I have to clean down here in the bottom. But the hammers already look better. And these spots here you see that are still on there are just not sure what they call it, but it's when they stamp these out and the metal kind of like deformed there instead of cutting cleanly. So there's just like the like kind of like indented a little bit, just the rough pieces from when they stamped them. That's all that is. But yeah, not sure if I can see now. Oops. Oh, nice and clean the tops of those are. So it's gonna keep going and come back if there's anything interesting. Alright, so you may notice we are upside down now, and there's a couple reasons for that. So I kind of got tired of trying to move this machine around with the crushed feet, and it kept pinching my fingers underneath this, the frame here, because the metal part only sticks up a little tiny bit, and then the rest is supposed to be the foot above that. Of course, these feet were all squashed down. You can see I did go ahead and remove those off camera, just because I kind of wanted to get in there and do that. I was hoping to make new feet out of some caulking. I'm trying this stuff first. We'll see how rubbery it dries. If it's going to be real mushy, it's not going to work, but I'm hoping it's going to dry pretty rubbery and be, almost like rubber feet. If that doesn't work, I'll probably try this, which has asphalt in it, but we'll see. Unfortunately, I didn't really read the label on that until after I started squirting it out, and it says that it takes 7 days to dry, so I really didn't want to have this machine upside down here for 7 days on my table. So what I ended up doing was, because I was originally going to mold the feet directly on here, I thought it would only take, maybe a day to dry, but since that wasn't the case, I took what I had tried to mold on here off, and I'm going to let that dry separately, and then see if I can glue them on or attach them somehow once that stuff is set up for 7 days. So what I was going to do was just take some of these plastic cups, and I cut holes in the bottom, and just put them on here or something like that, and then fill it up to a certain level and let it sit. I was hoping that the caulk would flow enough to level off, but I realized that wasn't going to happen. So then I thought I would just let it dry and then peel the cup off and then just cut it flat, make them all the same length. But then when I realized that was going to take so long to dry, I took them all off and I'm letting them dry on their own. And once they're all dry, I'll peel the plastic cups off and cut them to length, assuming that it's going to have the appropriate rubberiness to be good for feet. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm I'm obviously not gonna make them, that tall. It's excessive. Maybe, like around there or something. I'll probably cut them, and should be sufficient, I think. Anyway, so I'm not gonna be able to get these feet on as soon as I would have liked to. So it's still gonna be annoying to be picking this machine up and moving it around on the bench, or this cheap table. But I also wanted to take this little plate off the bottom here. You can see it's just this steel plate here. I wanted to get that off to get a look at this thing, which I've already partially disassembled, to see what exactly it was. And this is basically it's a centrifugal friction clutch, kind of like the Swift machines have, but it also has a brake on the top that activates when the handle returns to its home position, which I'll have to show later because you can't really see it now upside down. I've already taken the flyweights out of here, and it's kind of interesting because it only seems to have an effect on the return stroke. So you can see it ratchets here, so when you pull the handle forward, it ratchets past, and then on the return stroke it engages and spins this up. And you can see this spring is part of it. So see as this starts to, see how it ratchets against that. So as you pull the handle, this piece comes forward and will ratchet against this. And then on the return stroke, when this comes backwards, it will spin this and throw the shoes out to engage the centrifugal brake. And this spring is relaxed. So basically this spring is attached to a chain which goes around a gear on the center shaft here on the ratchet part, and the other side of the chain attaches to here. So basically as this moves, it extends the spring. Which way? Move this way, right? No, it moves this way. Oh wait, it moves. So I can't really tell right now, but anyway, I think I'll move that way. I want the spring ratchet and then pull back. I think so anyway. But yeah, so basically it's just a friction brake, or centrifugal friction brake that only works on the return stroke. So I understand. I guess they assumed that no one would be able to pull it strong enough to against the spring, which this is not a super strong spring compared to what's in the Burros, but I guess they assume no one would be able to pull it fast enough to cause any damage on the forward stroke, so they would only need a brake on the return stroke to prevent overspeed. But anyway, so over here are the shoes. We rotate this around here. And it's kind of weird. They don't have any pads on them. It looks like it's just this metal piece here that rubs against the inside of that cast iron disc, which is kind of interesting. You can see you have a little pad there that hits against the centerpiece, but yeah, it's kind of weird that there's no leather shoe or anything on there. But I guess that's there doesn't seem to be any way to attach anything either, so it's not like it rubbed off or fell off as far as I can tell. It looks like that's just the way that they made it. And given that it's bumped up like that, I don't think there would be any room to put anything on there. So, kind of interesting. You can see these are cast pieces. I don't think they filled them with lead. They're pretty heavy. So, yeah, basically pretty simple mechanism. I just wanted to take it apart and see exactly what it was and get everything all cleaned up. So, I guess I'll just put some grease or oil or something on here, and it doesn't seem like it's really worn that much as far as I can tell. I don't really feel like a lip or anything worn in that disc that these pads ride against, so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. You'd think that if it was with this metal rubbing on that metal all the time, it would have worn in, but it doesn't seem to have done that, so it's kind of weird. But yeah, I'm just going to get these cleaned up, put it back together, and I'll flip the machine back over and go over some more detail on how the print mechanism works and making some progress there. I also removed the keyboard, which is actually surprisingly simple to do. I'll go into that in a little bit. But so yeah, making some slow progress here. Made some progress on the print mechanism, so I'll go into that once I flip this back over. Yeah, and you can see you know, this is that disc here that those pieces ride in, and you know, it looks like there's a little bit of like marks on it, but I don't feel any like ridge or anything where it would have worn in, so I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to work, but this one's nice and free, but I'm going to clean it up anyway. There's quite a bit of grease. You can see like here how there's some globs of grease on that, so I'll clean all that up while I'm in here. And the top of the chain that goes around the top is kind of like that too, so I'll have to clean that up probably from the other side. So I'm going to clean that up, put it back together, and then we can flip it over and go into the print mechanism. Now, as you can see how those go in there, just the screw goes in and then these are and pivot like that. You can see that just pushes this pad here against the outside, so we're going to put some white lithium grease on there, so hopefully they won't wear any more than they have in the past 100 years. And I've also cleaned up and put some grease on this point, and that point over there too. I think everything else I can pretty much get from the top. These pieces here, I think those are just, I don't think those, we'll have to check on that. I think these are just spring holders, but I can check on that as well. I'll have to clean those too. So yeah, I'll see if I can grease the other side of this ring from the top. I just make sure it's greased all the way around. And yeah, this does get a little bit stiff. I'm thinking that might just be because you know, normally these would be, gravity would be pulling these this way, but now gravity is pushing the other way, so maybe that's just what's getting these stuck. Hopefully I'll see if they're still sticky when I flip it over, because it's only that one spot. It spins around and then it gets kind of stuck there. So if they're still like that when I flip it over, then I'll have to look into what's causing that. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done on the bottom here. I'll put the cover back on and we'll flip it back over. Before I flip it back over, I forgot to mention these feet actually screwed in. I was able to get one of them out. You can see here, I just like screw in like out of the front, so I may not screw in this particular hole, but they come out of this one. Yeah, so you can see they just screw in and unscrew. Of course, this is the only one that came out. The others were so brittle that as soon as I tried to unscrew it, the top just cracked right off, and then there was nothing to grab onto. So the rest of these I had to like chip out. You can see some of the dirt here that'll get dumped out when I flip this back over. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that these, I don't know whether they cast them in here or whether they made these separate and screwed them in. I would suspect they cast them in here because this one fits in there, but it doesn't want to go in there. I'm not even showing it. And it'll go in there. It's interesting. So maybe the front ones are different than the back ones. Yeah, this doesn't want to go in either of the back ones, but it'll go in either of the front ones, so it's interesting. But anyway, let's flip this back over and take a look at how far we got on the hood mechanism. You can see how I took the keyboard out here, and this is the top of that disc, and you can see the chain there. So right now it's locked because these brakes on either side are engaged, but if you pull the handle a little bit, those lift up. You can see this is pretty free now, so oh, it's not going to be super free because as you spin it, the weights, you know, slide out and hit the side. But you can see how this works. So you can see it's ratcheting here, and when you release the handle, it engages and acts as a brake on the return stroke. If we just release it a little bit. Yeah, that's just fine. No really stiff parts. So I'm going to clean up this top surface a little bit. You can see it's pretty greasy on there. Yeah. It's definitely interesting that it only has dampening on the backstroke and not the forward stroke. And there is no, you know, oil-filled dampener like the Burrows have, which dampens it both ways. It's kind of interesting, but anyway, so I made some progress on the front mechanism, as you can see here, and I wanted to demonstrate how this works while it's still mostly apart. So as you can see, these pieces down here, I think I described before, have little tabs on them that hit against here. And as you pull the handle, any column that has a number entered in it, these will rise up to raise the print head, or the print piece in that column to the correct number. When that happens, these will spring up, which will release these here, which release hooks on the back of the hammer. So for example, right now, all of these are down in the position they would be if no numbers were entered. You can see if I activate the hammer mechanism, you can see no hammers spring forward to print anything. So they're all latched. Now, suppose that I had entered something in this first column here. So I'll simulate that by pushing up on the bottom of here, which would be the same as if the spring had lifted it up when the riser rose. And now when I lift this up, you can see that first hammer springs forward, which would then print something in that column. Now say I've entered, say I've entered 500, so I have 500. So all the ones in these first columns would be held down because nothing is entered in those first two columns, and the riser hasn't risen in those first two columns. But this third column riser, I can get my finger on it, will have risen here, and you can see, I think you can see anyway, when I do that, all three of the first risers there, or the first latches rather, so we can get a better view. You can see by pushing on the third lever here, all three latches release, and if I were to print something, you can see the first three hammers all spring forward. So basically that's your zero suppression. All the hammers this side stay locked so nothing prints. You wouldn't print any zeros over here, but all the hammers behind it release, so you'd print 500 and print all the zeros behind it. That's how the zero suppression works. So, a couple things have to go back in here yet. These hammers do not directly drive the printers. I think I said this before, but these, oops, I just dropped it down in there. These pieces here, whichever way they go, I think this way, yes, actually sit in front of here and then drive the printer. So those have to go back in. There's a shaft that goes across here that has to go back in. So I've already got some of these lined up. This is the rod to hold the springs on the secondary hammers that has to go back in. This has to get cleaned up here. That's the total marker. But yeah, when you look at it, there's quite a few pieces that go into this. But once you actually, take it apart and look at it, it's not too complicated how it actually works. Of course, my camera is lopsided here. So you can see I've also got the register out. I had to take off a bit of levers on that side and some levers on this side, so that'll be fun to put back in. And over there you can see I've got it disassembled over there, ready to get cleaned up. Luckily the digit that was stuck wasn't stuck too bad. We pick up the shaft here. We can see. So I think probably right around there looks like where it was stuck. You can see the extra layer of grease. The rest of it doesn't look too bad, but right there, I think that's the one that was stuck. So we'll get that cleaned up. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't stuck too bad. It just, a little bit of pulling and it pretty much came right off. So it was good. No damage inflicted on any of the digit wheels. So we'll get that cleaned up. While I have this apart, I'll do just some generic cleaning on all these pieces that I can access, and continue reassembling this. And so far so good. You can see, like I said, I got the keyboard out. It was pretty easy to take out. There's just two rods that go in here and here, and they're not pinned or anything. They just slide through. So if you just pull those out, the whole thing just lifts right out. It's probably the easiest keyboard I've ever removed. See these right here. So these are those rods here. You can get a better view of them. They just got a knob on one side and then a point on the other side, I guess, to help guide them in. So hopefully that'll go back in just as easy as it came out once everything's cleaned up. And we'll come back here once you got something interesting to see.